Hello, I'm Jim Rambo, Senior Technical Trainer with the Google Search Appliance. Today we're going to show you how to set up searching of people data in your corporation. This is very helpful because a lot of corporations have their people data stored in a repository or a directory system like Active Directory or Sun1. So if you have an LDAP server set up, we can show you how to do this very quickly with the Search Appliance. First, we're going to describe the features of the people search, and then we're going to show you how to set up. There's three components we're going to need to use to make this work. We're going to have to use an LDAP connector, we're going to have to use a collection, and we're going to have to use the people search functionality and set it up. Here's what the search results look like. In the bottom right here, you'll see that there is people data that has been inserted. When a user runs a search for Bill, he's seeing results for Bill Clinton, Bill Cosby, and several other people. This data is going to come as attributes from an LDAP server. The images may come from images stored on a web server that have links inside of the Active Directory attributes. The users can search for people in your organizations based on their metadata, and then the results will be displayed in what we call the sidebar element. If there are no organic search results, then this sidebar element will be displayed on the left-hand side. Now, the people data can actually come from any source. It could be a database, it could be a content management system, and we could set up a feed. You'd have to build the feed yourself and use that to fetch and feed the data to the GSA. But in our case, we're going to take the simpler route. We're going to assume that there's an LDAP server. In our case, it's Active Directory, and we've got some user attribute data, and it can be, the attributes can come from any fields inside of your LDAP server. This is a graphical representation of how the people search feature works. Here's our LDAP server. We'll configure an onboard LDAP connector on the search appliance, and that will fetch and index the data. Then we will define a new collection called the people collection. You can call it anything you want. This will be used to filter out just results coming from this connector and display them in this. And then what we'll do is we'll connect this collection to a onebox module that will then display these results in the sidebar element. You can modify the style sheet. Now, this is what the results are going to look like default out of the box, unless you put some style and some XSL code around it or some HTML code around it. We're going to show you how to get these search results first, and then we're going to show you how to enhance them. There's going to be another collection. In this case, we'll use the default collection, but this collection will have to be modified so that it does not include any of the people data that was fed by the connector. To configure this, we're going to create a collection. We're going to remove the people results from the default collection. We're going to configure the LDAP connector. We're going to configure people search and enable it on a front end. This will allow us that'll create the onebox module for us, and then we'll search with this new front end for people with a default collection. When it's time to configure the LDAP connector, we'll go through the connector configuration page. We'll enter in the binding information, such as a user that can read all user data from the LDAP server, and we'll define where the users are going to be found in the LDAP server with an LDAP query, and we're also going to define which organizational unit we'll retrieve them from, and then we'll specify the attributes, the specific attributes you want to index. When it comes time to configure people search, we have under Social Connect, we have a WYSIWYG editor. This will allow us to define the look and feel. We can modify the style sheet. We can add the fields that we want to display. We can put HTML font and color on that text. We can put links behind the text. We can put an image in this display. And here at the top is where we will specify the collection name that we want to bind this people search to. So going back to our diagram, this is the people collection that we will be binding to. When you configure people search, that creates the onebox module. You don't have to do that. Then in the front end, we enable people search, and this will add the front end the onebox to that front end. You can add the people search to more than one front end if you want. Then when we're done, we're going to stylize the input so that we can have images and links behind the data. So let's take a look at how to do this. First, let's do a little bit of discovery on our Athens web server. Here are the portraits, the images that are going to be displayed for each of the users. So I'm going to click on one. Here's the link to the page. These, we will have to identify where these files are located and which file applies to each user. So these, the base directory will be put into the people search. The individual image files will be a part of an attribute in the LDAP server. On the search appliance, we will first check to make sure that our crawl patterns include Google Connector. This is because the LDAP connector is going to use a content feed to inject the metadata. So this is the expression we need to receive those URLs. We'll go to Collections, and here we have the default collection already created. We're going to edit this collection so that it does not include results coming from our LDAP connector, so that the people data does not display any organic results. And we'll call this myldap.localhost. This is the pattern that you get for a content feed where myLDAP is the name of the connector, which I'll set up in just a minute. Go back to Collections, and we'll create a new collection for the people data. And we'll just call it People Collection. Now we'll edit that so that we only include data from the LDAP connector. Next, we'll set up the LDAP connector to fetch the people data. So it's an onboard connector, and we can use the onboard connector because we typically are not going to have more than 500,000 users. So there'll be plenty of resources on the GSA. Just click Add New, select LDAP, whoops, and give it the name, myLDAP. That name has to match what you put in the collections. Here I'll specify the LDAP server, the port that it's listening on. I'm going to use not anonymous but simple authentication. You can check the documentation for explanations on this. I'm going to use a user that has permissions to read all user data from LDAP. I'm going to use standard instead of SSL connection. If you have SSL set up in your LDAP server, you'll have to use SSL. The LDAP search base will match the OU or organizational unit you want to start searching for users in the LDAP server. In my case, it's going to be under my domain. And the search query that you're going to use. This is an LDAP search query. It may be the names and types of objects may change from different type of LDAP server to a different type of LDAP server. This is for Active Directory. I'm going to look for people. And I can specify some scheduling, but I'm going to just go with the default scheduling. Once you click Save, a connection to the LDAP server is made. The list of attributes is retrieved that are available, and then you can select them one by one. And here I've selected the common name, the display name, the department, the description field. This description field has the name of each of the JPEG files that are used for the portraits of the users. I'll get their email address, their surname, and their telephone number. And click Save Results. Now the connector is set up. The people data has been retrieved from the Active Directory. Got green light status here. I can check my feeds. And it's in progress. You can see it's a content type feed, incremental. Next, we'll configure the people search under Social Connect. Here you specify the collection name, and I'm going to choose the people collection that I created. This is a way of segmenting off the people data for display. Here I'm just going to put down a couple of simple fields. These are just labels that get displayed. And here's how we specify the names of the attributes that we want to display inside of the sidebar element. And I'm going to leave this very, very simple for now. So all I'm going to display is the user's name and their email address. Click Save. This is going to create the onebox module for us. I can then go to Serving and create my front end. We'll call this Person so we don't get our names crossed up. Edit it. We'll go to Search Results and enable People Search. Save the page layout code. This is adding the onebox module to this front end. We can go across to the onebox modules that are attached to this front end. Here's that onebox module that's created for us. You can even see that onebox module if you go to your onebox modules page. Here it is. Now let's return to our feeds page and check the status on our feed. We see that it's completed. We'll go to our status and report crawl diagnostics. See if the data is indexed. Let's check under the people collection. And here's our data from the LDAP server. It's just metadata, right? So now to run search results, I changed the client parameter for the front end and the proxy style sheet parameter for that same front end, and I specify my person front end here. You might have to also include the proxy reload equals 1 parameter so that you're getting the latest style sheet changes. When you run a search request, the people results display on the right-hand side. All we're seeing is label and then the user's name. Label for the email address and their email address. But we did get the user results data. This is important. Sometimes it takes a little time for that collection to get created. That can take up to 20 minutes. Sometimes the front end changes take up to 5 minutes to get updated. And if you're not comfortable, if you feel like you've waited long enough, you can go in here and force the front end to reacquire the onebox module. I'm going to go back to onebox modules here, and you can select this onebox module and move it to the disabled column. If you do this, you save the changes, then you come back into this same page, select the onebox module, and move it back over to the right-hand side. So it's included again. What that's doing is it's picking up any changes that you might have made to the onebox module. Anytime you make a change to the people search configuration, you might need to come in and do this. Not necessarily so, but you might need to. Let's see what else. One other thing I did was when I was running the search, I could go in and remove the proxy style sheet to verify that the onebox module results are coming in. And all you have to do is remove the style sheet. You get the raw XML. Down here you'll see the onebox modules. This way you know that the configuration is working for your onebox module. The collection's filtering the user data. The onebox module's including it in the results set. You just might have an issue with the front end, so that's a good time to go back in and jiggle that onebox module, disable it, and then re-enable it. That was a search for just basic user attributes. Let's jazz up this style so that it's a little bit more comprehensible and a little easier and more user-friendly. Let's include the image of the user, and let's do some formatting on the fields and put some links behind that data. So in the image source, what we've done is we've defined, here you can see the portraits, the files will come from the portraits directory, and we'll use the value of the description attribute in the LDAP server to get the specific file name. We'll also put, that's the image source, so we'll do a get request, and then there's also the image link that we might want to put behind the image. So if the user clicks on that link, they actually go back out to the web server that's hosting that file, that image, so they might be able to get a bigger picture of the user. We'll put some size parameters around this, and then we'll also include some HTML for a font with a color and a size for the display name, different color for the telephone number, and yet another, let's see, and we're going to use the same color for the email. We're also going to put a link behind the user's display name. I've already saved those changes. What I'm going to do now is run a search. I'm doing this on a different GSA. So what do you think happened? I didn't get any people results. I forgot to switch over to my people front end. Let's see, in this GSA it might be a different name. Here I'm calling it people. So default front end client parameters set to people. Proxy style sheet set to people. And now I have a much cleaner interface, very user-friendly and intuitive. There's links behind the image. This goes out to the portrait file on that web server. And there's a link behind the user's name. It goes to a different file. It's actually got an image and some more information on the user. You could put anything. The point is that you can put any kind of a link to any kind of information back there. If I didn't get any algorithmic search results for Jim, then again, this sidebar element would shift over to the left, and all I would see is the people data. Okay, that concludes our setting up a people search. Remember, you have to connect an LDAP connector. You could get the data from any feed. It could be from a database or anything, but the LDAP connector is easy to set up. You set up a separate collection to filter out the people results, enable and configure people search so that your onebox module is created, and then your results can display in a sidebar element. For further details, consult our documentation.